do this now. So welcome everybody again. I'm Silke from New Zealand. I have a different background this week because I'm actually down on the South Island skiing. And so we have Dimitar here today, and it's about scaling and deploying strategy the Kanban way. Really exciting, and I think that's why the demand is so high, because scaling is a big thing in New Zealand at the moment. And for those who haven't been to this meetup yet, this is Kanban New Zealand. And we've had a lot of really cool speakers during lockdown. And now that we are actually able to work in person again, we've come to do the meetup once a month. And most of the time still virtually now, but sometimes we might also do an in-person one. But I'm thinking about a way how we can maybe mix it up and do it both ways. Because it's actually really cool that people from all over the world can just join and also enjoy the great stuff that our speakers are coming up with. And so just a few words from Daniel from his meetup in Australia, and Ben as well. They are my co-organizers.
Yeah, thanks, Silke. Hey, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Daniel Plug. I'm organizer of the Melbourne and Sydney Kanban meetups, or it's called Limited Whip Society in Sydney. So welcome, thanks for coming again. And so once again, the Melbourne meetup group has been particularly strong for the last couple of years, and we've had some great talks, presentations, workshops and things that we've done pre-COVID, but I think since COVID, we've been able to have lots of awesome speakers, and we'll continue to do so. So if anyone wants to know more about Kanban, please reach out to me. There's training available. There's also blog posts, and I've also started up a newsletter lately, so you can take news of what's going on in the Kanban world. Just check out my evogilligan.com.au website and you can find out more information. And we haven't got our August meetup organised yet, but we'll probably, Ben and I will hopefully have something down soon once we get it figured out. And I think we'll have something also coming up in September. So we'll keep it rolling throughout the year with many more great speakers and great things. So you may as well take advantage of this while we can. Ben.
Yeah, welcome everyone. It's really exciting to have 3 meetup groups plus other countries. So not only do we have New Zealand, Sydney, Daniel's meetup, Kanban from Melbourne, we've also got people dialing in from India, Germany, and other places. So feel free to put your contact details in the chat, and we can share the chat at the end of the group if you'd like to do a bit of networking via chat. You put your LinkedIn details in there if you want. You can say where you're coming from, and I'll keep an eye out on the chat for any questions. And we're going to have some time for questions at the end, so feel free to hold on to those. But if there's something in the flow, you can probably put it in the chat, and we'll try to keep an eye on that and see if it makes sense to interrupt Dimitar. So the timing is roughly, I think, under 45 minutes. Is that right, Dimitar, with 15 minutes of questions?
Yeah, approximately, yeah.
Brilliant. So I'll hand over back to Silke. Maybe you can just tell us a bit about who our speaker is today and why we're so excited to have him.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to add to what Daniel said for the New Zealand trainings. That's of course you can also contact me anytime. So he's the Australia trainer, I'm the New Zealand trainer, and we organize that between us, and we also co-facilitate some if we can. And so now back to Dimitar. Thanks for being here. Dimitar, it's really awesome. I think you're in Bulgaria, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's really cool that you're joining us today to the other side of the world. Dimitar is the CEO and co-founder of Kanbanize, which is a Kanban software. And actually, there are quite a few of them. There was just an email conversation between AKTs in the world that I followed. There are heaps of them out there. And Kanban University is following most of them, and they are also recommending some. And Kanbanize is actually one of those they have partnered with, and that they actually deem a really good Kanban software with which you can work in the way the Kanban is actually taught by the founder of Kanban, David Anderson himself. So he's also recommending that Kanban software. And Dimitar has a lot of experience, decades of experience working with companies like SAP. But maybe Dimitar, you can talk a bit more about your background, because I only just also know what the internet says, really.
Sure, I would be happy to. I will actually go ahead and share my screen and start with the presentation. First of all, I'm very happy that I actually see some faces. Let me know if you see my presentation in presentation mode. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, good, Dimitar.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dimitar. I'm one of the founders of Kanbanize. We started Kanbanize 8 years ago. Shortly after Kanban was officially and formally conceived, actually. So I've been a member of the community ever since. And today I'm going to share my observations and my learnings along this journey with Kanbanize on how you can scale Agile and then how you can get to business agility the Kanban way. A few words about myself. We already mentioned I'm from Kanbanize. I just want to add that my background is mainly in IT and software development, but through our journey with Kanbanize, I talked to literally hundreds and thousands of people from various backgrounds. So you can certainly listen to the words I say if you're from the IT industry, but I would also encourage you to steal something from what I'm going to say if you're in any industry, because the things I'm going to say are more or less or universal. A quick disclaimer, I'm going to be showing screens and some analytics from Kanbanize just because it's the tool I know best, but it's mainly the ideas that are important. So don't take this as a product placement or something. Just pay attention to the ideas and then what's behind the tool, because I think that's even more important than the tool itself. All right, let me start with a very quick story. It's about a kid learning to play chess, and this kid is actually me. I was maybe, I don't know, 5 years old. And I'm telling you this story because I think it's very much the same what you do in scaling Agile, like when you learn to play chess. So I'm 5 or yeah, I'm not muted now, right? So I'm learning to play chess. I'm going to my father and say, "Hey, Pa, can you teach me how to play chess?" He says, "Sure." And we spend like 20 minutes talking about the rules of the game. And after 20 minutes, I'm ready to play. And we started playing. And what do you think happens? Well, I lost in 4 moves. Everybody who's played chess knows the famous 4-move win by the whites. And I was super disappointed. Hey, how could I lose so fast in 4 moves? And I felt so humiliated that I thought, hey, I will learn to play chess better than my father and I'll win someday. And we started playing and I lose every game. I must have lost, I don't know, 200 games in a row. I'm not sure, but I'm quite stubborn and I keep pushing. And I'm asking for advice. Hey, father, can you tell me why I'm losing? And he says, you attack too much with the queen. The queen is the strongest piece in chess. You attack too much with the queen and it's easy for me to capture it. And once I capture it, it's like you're doomed. So try to attack with more pieces altogether, not just with the queen. And what I'm hearing is you should not attack with the queen. So I stopped doing that and nothing changed. I still lost every game. Then I say, hey, give me some other advice. And he says, try to move the knights. These are the horses. Try to move the knights towards the center of the board, because when you move them to the side of the board, their impact is quite limited. And I say, all right, I'll do it. So I stopped moving the knights to the side of the board, even though sometimes it made sense. Nothing happened. I was still losing every game. And then I asked, hey, give me some better advice. I need to win. And he told me, sometimes it's a good idea to do the rocade. The rocade is where you switch the king with the rook to protect the king. And that was a very, very good advice. And I say, hey, this must be it. And I started doing the rocade. Actually, the whole purpose of me playing became doing the rocade. And it didn't help as well. And that lasted for a long time. At some point in time, I got so pissed that I started watching videos of famous chess players, how they play, because I wanted to learn. And what I discovered was quite disappointing and astonishing at the same time. And it was that they were not playing by the rules of my father. They would move the knights to the side of the board. They would not do the rocade. They would not attack with all the pieces at once or just with the queen. Actually, sometimes they sacrifice the queen. And it's like, what is going on? Is my father lying to me? Is he so mean that he would lie to his own son? Is he a lousy player? And my childish head and my childish brain was thinking these things, but actually I wasn't understanding, I wasn't seeing the obvious. Unless you put thought into what you're doing, there's not a shortcut way to learn to play the game. And seeing those chess masters play the way they play, I stopped listening to these advices blindly, and I started thinking about the game. I started putting real thought into my moves, and quite surprisingly, not too much later, I won my first game. So that's a very good lesson to learn when you're 6. You should always question what's going on around you. You should always question the advice that you're getting, not reject it, but just question it. And I think this comes down to what I'm doing now with scaling Agile stuff 30 years later. I have a big issue with the rigid frameworks out there that claim scaled agility. And I'm not meaning any in particular. I think most of the frameworks fall under the same boat. And if somebody comes from the outside and they give you advice and they claim that it's going to solve the problems for you, I think they're mainly looking to get your money. I think what we need to learn in the Agile world is that it's okay to know the rules. We should know the rules, but success is never granted. It's never guaranteed. Actually, failure is guaranteed, and this is a very quick next story I want to tell you. And because we're talking to New Zealand audience, and my favorite movie was filmed in New Zealand, I just couldn't help myself putting angle here with my precious scaling failure. It was 2010. I was working for Software AG, a big German company, and we were embarking on a journey from waterfall to Agile. It's 10 years ago, so we were quite a pioneer in this field back then. It was due to our visionary vice president who came from other company, and he gathered a team of 10 people, myself and 9 other people, and he tasked us to help the company go from waterfall to Agile. Of course, with the help from consultants from the outside. And we got the impression that all we had to do was to install Scrum in all the teams. And we thought as soon as we install Scrum in all the teams, we'll be done with scaling Agile. And I can say, yeah, it was 10 years ago, so it's okay to make such mistakes, but it's not the exception. We see this even today, 10 years later. Installing whatever in the teams is not how you scale Agile. And I know this because we failed quite heavily. After installing Scrum in all the teams, we thought we were done. And it was all cool. They were delivering. They had their story points, all that stuff. But then product management, which was a separate organization, customer-facing organization, came to R&D and say, you guys suck. And we were like, what do you mean? We're all hitting the story points and all that stuff. And you say, we're not delivering software? And they say, yeah, the customers are not happy with what they're delivering. And we just couldn't believe it. How could this be? We were all super busy delivering software. And there was a guy, his name is Jay Gauthier. He came up with this great idea. He took all the features that the organization was working on or had to work on or had finished, and visualized the number of features that were done, that were in progress, and that were requested on something like a Kanban board. All right, this was 2010. We hadn't exactly heard about Kanban yet. We had our own version of it. And it turned out that we had 153 features released in the last 2 years. And I'm wondering if anybody can guess how many in progress we had. Do we have a chat window? Can anybody just guess how many we had? For 2 years, we had released 153. Do you know how many in progress we had? Where's the chat? I want to see the chat. 1,000.
Maybe
Actually,
people can also unmute and just shout out. That makes it a bit more like it's a real life thing if they want.
Yeah.
300?
It was more than 1,000.
More than 1,000. Oh my God.
More than 1,000. And nobody had a freaking idea about it. And that's actually the bigger problem, that nobody had a freaking idea about it. So we had something between 5 and 10 years of work in progress at that time. And nobody knew about it. It's just ridiculous. And we were a good company. I'm not saying that the company was bad. We were a pretty good company. It was just that we were not aware of the flow principles. We were not aware of how much work in progress we were starting unconsciously. And the problem was that teams were working on user stories. We had a bunch of teams, like 20 product teams, working on user stories, super busy, but there was no layer above the user story to visualize how the features were flowing through the system. So there could have been one feature with 100 stories, 99 stories of them finished, one story pending, and we didn't know. So instead of picking that one story, the teams could pick any other random story among the thousands of stories out there. And when I saw this, it really struck me. Hey, we need to do something above the team level. Doing the team level stuff is cool, but unless you do something above the team, we're not doing anything. And then I was lucky enough to have my childhood best friend working on in the software industry, and I went to him and I pitched him the idea to build a piece of software that was connecting the management layer with the team layer, not just the team layer. Visualize the flow of work above the team level and let the teams do their own stuff while we visualize the flow of the features automatically at the top, and limit work in progress at the top and all that stuff. So he liked the idea. He created a prototype, and I went to the company I worked for, and I pitched them the idea to replace Jira with our prototype. And as you can imagine, they laughed at me because Jira is a beast, and it has a lot of functionality and all the and features and everything. And with this crappy prototype, we couldn't replace it. It was just naive. But I somehow knew that this was going to be a big problem for every company that was trying to do the things we were trying to do 10 years ago. And I decided to quit and start my own company with my friends. And that's how Kanbanize was born. With the very idea to help companies scale their agile delivery methods. And there we are, a very poor startup sitting in a restaurant trying to figure out how we're going to compete against Jira, because obviously it's the status quo. And we thought, hey, we need our scaling pillars, and that's how we came up with this idea of scaling pillars. So there are 3 scaling pillars in our opinion, and you can trust us or not trust us on that. By the way, we're not including people here because it's a whole new universe. If we're not talking about people, we believe these are the 3 pillars of scale. The first one is predictable delivery workflows. This is the team level. When you want to deliver something, can you actually deliver it? The second principle is how to connect pull-based execution of the work to planning. And it's a huge problem because you can't plan without any notion of time. And at the same time, pull-based execution implies that you don't have a schedule. You have capacity and you pull work as capacity is available. So we had to find a way how to connect pull-based execution with planning. And I have to admit, it took us 8 years to get to that. So it's quite hard to do this in a piece of software. And the last piece is transparency. You would be maybe surprised, but out of the 200 to 300 people I talk to every year, I mean new prospects, 95% of them are interested in Kanbanize just because they have no idea what's going on in their organizations. And these are good companies. These are not bad companies. It's just so hard today to know what's going on that we need some sort of help to visualize work where work is. And we were thinking with my founders, hey, how do we solve all these problems? And the solution that we came up with was, well, regarding delivery workflows, we thought it was Kanban. So I'm showing you this very simple picture of a Kanban board. It's not exactly a Kanban board even because it doesn't have explicit policies, it doesn't have whip limits. But the thing is, and that's a very unfortunate thing about the Kanban world, is that a lot of people would think that this is Kanban. I'm not sure how much familiar are you with Kanban. I know that there are some very well-trained people on this session. Maybe others are not. If you have no formal Kanban training, please know that Kanban is not just that. Kanban is more of that. This is the Kanban maturity model poster. The Kanban maturity model is a relatively new piece of work by the Kanban people, and David Anderson and Tibor Bozheva, they are the authors of the KMM. And they map 7 levels of maturity in the organizations from level 0 to level 6. And then they map all the general Kanban practices, visualization, limiting work in progress, and all that. And they introduce more than 150 sub-practices within those generic buckets. And corresponding to your level of maturity, you would be doing these practices. So there are more than 150 practices in Kanban. Maybe they're getting close to 200, I'm not sure. But this is not Kanban. This is just a visual board of some sort, and this is Kanban. If you guys are not aware of that, and if you're interested in true Kanban implementation, please talk to the organizers of this session because they can teach you stuff that's quite useful. So let me go back to how we make our delivery workflows predictable. The first thing you have to do is actually have to have a workflow, right? So if you have a generic to-do done thing, you can't really optimize it because it's only one state in progress. How do you optimize in progress? Well, you don't know. So you have to somehow refine your workflows. And this is just an example workflow with a bunch of states. You could introduce horizontal lanes to visualize different demand sources or different classes of service, depending on what you want to do. You can have merge states like this, and then still parallel work in the middle. You can have different workflows. And again, I'm not showing you this to demonstrate the software. I'm showing you different ways to visualize your workflows so that you can optimize them and have them predictable. Right? So if you have different workflows, you can have 3 steps here, 4 steps here, 10 steps there. It doesn't matter. As long as you're optimizing and visualizing your workflow, you'll be able to see things like this. All right. So if you have a somewhat refined workflow, when work starts piling up somewhere, you will just see it. And it might be a bottleneck of some sort. So if you want to make your delivery times shorter, focus on these columns. How do you focus on them? Maybe just apply some work in progress limits so that you don't allow work to pile up there indefinitely. And with all these things, with blockers, for example, you can visualize blockers. When you visualize a blocker on your workflow, and that could be a physical board with a blue magnet on it. It doesn't matter how you visualize it. The teams can swarm on those blockers. They can resolve them faster and then eliminate outliers from your data. We'll talk about data in just a second. Yeah, so with all these practices, refining your workflow, visualizing blockers, having work in progress limits, all you're doing with this is attempting to improve the flow of value through your system so that it's more predictable. And here I want to show you a bunch of charts that we're using internally, and I guess some of you on the call are using as well. How you know if you are predictable. Predictability is the basis of scaling Kanban, actually scaling Agile at all. So I want to make sure you guys know how to detect that. And I'm going to show you a real quick glimpse at what it means to be predictable, to have a predictable workflow. So I'm showing you here a cycle time scatter plot chart. This is a chart that shows you how much time cards took to complete. It's as simple as that. On the x-axis, we have the timeline. So as work is completed, it's plotted here. And how much it took is plotted here on the y-axis. And if you take a look at this data sample, would you say it's a predictable delivery workflow or not? Just by looking at it. We don't have a lot of time for discussion, unfortunately, so I'll just go ahead and say it. It is a predictable workflow. Yeah, of course there are outliers, and quite strange, they look like a hockey stick. So it looks like they will keep going up, but that's just a coincidence. But it's a quite predictable workflow. How do I know that? Well, I have 95% of the work, this horizontal line here, it says 95% of the work is finished within 15 days. So I know that whenever a feature enters the system, and I'm talking features, but it could be anything. When a work item enters this system, there is 95% chance that it will be out in 15 days. And if that's somewhat similar to my service level agreements, I'm super happy, because if it was an unpredictable workflow, I would have a much more dispersed data all over the place and not so much condensed towards the bottom. The 85th percentile, it says 9 days. So I know with a very good certainty, 85% is very good certainty, that a feature will get out in 9 days. So it's quite nice to have this sort of predictability, but it's not all, because it doesn't account for the work in progress that's currently in progress. And as we know, we might have 1,000 features in progress. So there's another chart that I find quite interesting. It's the aging web chart. It shows you whether your current work in progress is, well, aging, coming from the name of the chart. If it's aging, it's somewhere in the red area right here. What it means to be aging, it means it's older than your historical work. So you've been doing features for 6 months, and suddenly something changes, you get slower, then the work items will start climbing to the red area. If they're in the green area or in the yellow area, then you know that your work is not aging. And one last chart I want to show you. Actually, it's not the last one, but it's a very nice one. It's the cumulative flow diagram. I'm sure that if you know something about Kanban, you've seen this chart. But there are a few important things about this chart that I would just want to mention. First of all, this chart should never go down. sometimes you would see a CFD going up, going down. It means something there is not right. It always has to go up, or in the worst scenario, it has to be like here, not going up, not going down. But the more important stuff about the CFD are those rate lines. So when you visualize those rate lines, it will visualize the arrivals in the process compared to the departures of the process. And if those two lines are somewhat parallel, it means that you're not accumulating more and more and more and more work in progress over time. If they're diverging from one another, then it means you might be in trouble. You might be in my scenario of having 1,000 features in progress. What's cool about these charts is that they work for every work item type. It could be the simplest, the smallest, the most granular task that takes 5 minutes. It could be a huge project. It could be a huge epic, whatever. These charts are universal. So you can apply them to any type of work. That's a real powerful thing. So if your work is not aging, if you're not accumulating more work in progress over time, if whatever enters your system exits your system, which we guarantee with the work in progress limit, and with reviewing the aging chart, then we're very likely to have a stable system. When we have a stable system, it means that it's a predictable system. And with tools like these, the Monte Carlo simulations, assuming that you have a stable system, you can very easily forecast how much work you can get done in a certain time frame. So let's see, you have a deadline somewhere in 2022. I don't think you have such deadlines, but let's say you have them. On the 10th of February 2022, we have a deadline. So how much work can we get done until then? You run the simulation, and within 2 seconds, you know that you can do 344 work items by this deadline if you start today. How powerful is that? I mean, is there any other approach out there that can generate this information for you? I'm not aware of. Maybe there is, but I'm just not aware of. And instead of planning every work item and writing specifications, whatever, you just ask your system, hey, if I continue to work the same way I'm working today, what do you think is going to happen in 2 years from now? And you can do it the other way around. You can say, hey, I have 758 work items in my backlog. When do you think I'm going to get them done? And it will tell you, sometime towards the end of 2023. People will ask, how do I trust this forecast if I don't know how big the work items are? The size of the work item is built into the throughput over time here, upon which the simulation is run. So as long as you don't have too much different work compared to your historical work, things are going to work fine. Let me go back to my presentation. So why I'm showing you this? Because first of all, unless you have predictable delivery workflows, you can try to scale, and you will scale something, but I don't think you'll be getting the benefit out of it. So we covered the first scaling pillar. It was having a predictable workflow. How do you get it? You refine your workflow, you have the analytics, you measure stuff, and if you are predictable, you're ready to go next step. The next step is how to connect pull-based execution with planning. If this is Chinese to you, and I'm sorry if there are people who speak Mandarin here, I don't. So if this doesn't mean anything to you, just think about the following. How are projects managed usually? We have a timeline, we have a schedule of some sort, and then that's the good old Gantt chart. And there's a schedule, we have to execute it. And the world of Agile has not gotten to a good answer to that, at least in my opinion. So what's our response to project managers who say, hey, but I need my Gantt chart in order to plan? I've had such conversations, at least with 3 super experienced project managers, and they just don't trust me that they can do their work without a schedule of some sort. And I'm saying, hey, but the moment you attach a start date and an end date to a task, you are having a push system, because it just implies that capacity will be there at that point in time in the future, but that might not be the case. You might not have a capacity at that point in time. So there should be a better way to do things. And the better way to do things, in my opinion, and again, it took us 8 years to get to that, which is kind of embarrassing, but anyway, is this. You can have a push system, meaning you attach start and end dates to the work items just right above the task level. You're free to schedule projects, deliverables, initiatives, epics, features, whatever, as long as it's not a real work item. And if we take a look at this image here, this is a sample board in Kanbanize. We have these different workflows, and this here, the orange one, it's a timeline workflow. So you can actually put work items on a timeline and say, I think this will start on this date, and I think this will finish on that date. But the actual task is executed by the teams. This is the green workflow below. And these pieces of work here below in the green area, they are children cards of the bigger work item. This is our terminology. You can name it whatever you want. So when I start the first child card of a bigger work item, then the whole work item will be considered in progress. And the moment I finish the last child card that was not finished, we will consider the whole thing finished. And we think this approach is super effective because it gives you an ability to plan something, but at the same time, it doesn't have the push element into it. It's still a pull system because this is Kanban board, you have work in progress limits. You might want to start this, but if there's no capacity to start it, well, sorry, you just have to wait. And this is a very quick video of how this stuff works. So let me just very quickly explain the concept. Again, the idea is important, not the software. You have this bigger work item. It could be planned on a timeline. It could be planned on this initiative workflow. It doesn't matter. See what happens when I move the first task to in progress. I move the first task to in progress, and then the bigger item goes to in progress automatically. I don't push the big item in progress. I just have it trail the actual status of the tasks below. So the team is the leading piece. Well, see, when you finish the last task, let me pause that. When you finish the last task here, the bigger work items goes done automatically. And that's the principle that we use to scale Kanban across the entire organization. Everything is dictated by the progress of the tasks on the team level, because that's the reality. And I think that's, when you hear it like this, I guess it makes sense, but it's kind of hard to get to that wisdom. At least it took us a while. So instead of having a very nice plan and distribute this plan with your managers, and then they distribute this plan with their subordinates, and then every week you check the plan. Is it a good plan? Should we fix the plan? Blah 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 blah. It's the other way around. You see what's actually going on in your organization, and from then on you base your decisions on true facts and not on something that you think is going on in your organization. And even better, when the execution layer, the delivery workflow, is in the same system with your planning layer, it's a very easy thing to do stuff like this. So we have, let's say we have a plan. This is a timeline here. We have this initiative. It's planned to start here and to finish here on the 14th of August. And we have some progress. By the way, this progress, it's calculated based on the progress of the tasks on the team level. It's not just some imaginary thing that we put in there because we think it's 67% complete. It's the very fact. And it's very easy to see deviations from a plan because managers will want to see that, right? I guess at least half of you are managers. You will want to know when you're getting late with your plans. Well, you can know that, and you don't have to go back to teams with status reporting. You don't have to do any sort of miracles. All you have to do is just give them the work and help them execute. So to me, this is a huge gap that is missing in the majority of the implementations out there, or even the tools out there, because the tools out there will start from the plan and they will push it onto the team. And there should be a disconnect between, it should be connected, but at the same time disconnected. I'm not sure if I'm making sense with that. I hope I am. And the third thing, the last pillar of scale. So the first pillar was predictable workflows. The second pillar was how do we enable pull-based execution in a pull-based planning. And then the third pillar is organizational transparency. How do we know what the heck is going on in our organization? This one took us also quite some time to figure out. First of all, there are two ways to scale. You can scale horizontally, you can scale vertically, right? So the horizontal scale is what I described in the very beginning with the Scrum teams. You have to do this. I mean, if you're to be an agile organization, you have to do this. So it's a table stakes. But also you have to scale vertically, just so the management knows what's going on and is informed to make a decision. A very good concept in this is Klaus Leopold flight levels. This is not officially in the Kanban body of knowledge, but I think it's a great idea, and feel free to explore that. So with Kanbanize, we do something like this. This is an illustration, but let's say you have some projects, strategic projects here. You have a project 1, you have project 2. In Kanbanize, we allow you to connect multiple boards together, and you're free to do this on paper if you want to. You're free to do this in Jira if you want to. I'm not sure if it's possible, but if it's possible, do it. Again, what's important is the concept behind it. So you have a project, or any sort of big piece of work. It could be something else. You break it down across multiple Kanban boards, like procurement, engineering, application, and assembly. It doesn't matter. Whatever boards you have, you break the project down across these multiple boards. And then again, following this principle that the status of the children cards dictates the status of the bigger piece of work, you can go ahead and execute it. We achieve this in Kanbanize through different workspaces. It's management workspace versus team workspace. So we have dedicated workspaces for the management and for the teams, but they are connected. And this is how it looks like. So let me quickly explain. I'm sorry to be repeating this for the 10th time, but please pay attention to the idea. We have the projects here. This is the project plan. If you don't have projects, whatever you have, it's planned here. It's a timeline, see? Then those guys, the project deliverables or whatever, they are broken down into related boards. This black line here, there are 2 related boards. One is engineering, one is technical design. So you take this piece, you break it down across these 2 team boards. This is the management board. These are 2 team boards visualized below the management board. And then on the right is the actual team board. So this is one board on the left and a second board on the right. This is the management board, this is the team board. And the team board sees the very same work item. So it says work item for the team, this is work item for the team. This one and this one are the very same thing. So the management sees that, the team sees that. And when the team starts working on the tasks, this guy will move to in progress, this guy will move to in progress, and then this whole initiative will be started. So take a look at this piece. when I start the video, see what happens with that. So I play that, I move the task, it moves to in progress, and then the whole parent, which is 3 levels above, 1, 2, 3, 4 levels above, was marked as started. It moved to today because the first child card somewhere down the chain was started. And the moment we finish all the children cards, it will be marked as finished. So by the way, when you finish, sorry, what happened? I needed to pause that, but I clicked wrongly, sorry. So I want to show you something else. When you finish some work on the team level, you see 33% here completion rate. This completion is calculated across multiple team boards, across multiple tasks, and it shows you the real status. To me, this is super big because we're used to seeing statuses that are based on gut feeling, status reports, whatever, and this is the actual state of your work. So when you scale this across your entire organization vertically, you can just put the work in the system and start observing what's going on. I think this is our way to scale Kanban across the organization by not pushing stuff, but operating out of pull. It might not be the only way to do it, but I know it works. And I see it work over and over again. So I think it's a pretty good idea how we do this. And the last piece to that is that you can forecast the same way I showed you how you forecast on the team level with the Monte Carlo simulations. The same way you can forecast across the entire organization when work is going to get done. And it's not going to be based on estimations. It's not going to be based on what people think. It's going to be based on what's actually going on in the organization. I think you can't do this without tooling. Unfortunately, we don't have this yet in our system, but it's coming up in the next 6 months, I hope. So I think that's the ultimate journey for a company to scale Agile. Be in a state where they have continuous forecasting for their strategic items, for their projects, for their portfolios, whatever. That's based on the real execution of the work on the team levels. So I'm showing you here an example of what we're cooking right now. Estimated start date, estimated end date for this project based on the actual state of affairs across 1 to 100 to 1,000 teams. It doesn't matter. All right, so these were the pillars of scale. And I would like to show you a few real world examples, but we're at the same time running out of time. So let me actually pause here and see what questions we've got. And then if we have more time at the end, I will show you a few examples of what people do, all right? So I need to go back to the chat. Silke, how do we handle questions?
I was thinking about that. There was just some discussion really going on more than questions.
One question about Monte Carlo simulation and whether that's the only option and if there are other options.
And there was one about Kanban maturity model, but I think we might have answered that already in the chat. I think the Monte Carlo is more the, can you find that one, Ben?
Yeah, so it's just from Martin. Martin was saying that Monte Carlo is great. Wow, really excellent direction to go. But then someone else was saying, saying Martin, what other simulation models does Kanbanize have other than Monte Carlo? After all, if you're a simulation geek, you're likely to want to compare different simulation methods for accuracy. So probably a data scientist question. Martin, feel free to unmute if you want to contribute with that question.
Yeah, to be frank, I started thinking about the question afterwards, and I started thinking, you know what, Monte Carlo's got lots of options in terms of how you build the model. So depending on, you know, what sort of covariance model you put into it. But anyway, let me ask Dimitar what he thinks.
Yeah. Sure. First of all, I'm not a simulation geek at all myself. Maybe you have recognized the analytics module to be Daniel Vacanti's Actionable Agile. We integrate this into Kanbanize. So he's a good person to talk to about the simulation and what other variances are there. As far as I'm concerned, this is what works for us, and we haven't explored actually many others, not any others. We think that's what's accepted in the Kanban community as a good approach, and that's what we follow. But I'm open to hearing any others if you have.
To be frank, if Daniel's a bit of a guru in this space, so if he gives you the thumbs up, I would probably stick with that.
Yeah,
you can overdo the simulation piece.
And Carl has a comment. Carl, do you want to say that out loud, or do you want me to?
I was actually thinking the same that Carl was saying. Like, there's Troy McGuinness as well. He's like a data geek in the Kanban community.
Right. He has a lot of spreadsheets and free tools. I agree. That you can download from his website and use for free as long as you have the data.
And Troy's using the same model that Kanbanize is using, so it also uses a Monte Carlo probability model. So you'll see the same maths in Troy McGuinness. So you've got two leaders of the community both using the same statistical model to do probability forecasting, which is really great. Carl says his Zoom's freezing, otherwise he'd jump in there. In the other exciting news, I think we get Troy's coming to talk to us. Is that right, Silke?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yeah, so if you're interested, Troy's actually joining our meetup in a few months. I can't remember which month it is. Maybe October. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
he's definitely a better person to talk to about these things than I am. So
yeah, just look up the meetup and you'll find the meetup's already up there.
Okay, so.
But back to Dimitar.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you guys have any questions for me because we have 7 minutes left.
Yeah, there was Greg had a question. Can Kanbanize, hang on. Greg, what was your question? ADO.
Yeah, can Kanbanize integrate with ADO?
What's IDO? Sorry.
Azure DevOps.
All right. I think it does through Zapier. But I'm not sure about that. Our take on integrations is if you can integrate it with Zapier, that's an automated middleware for integrations, then you can. We support that. We don't have specific integrations with other tools like point-to-point integration. But I would guess that it's a yes. I haven't checked it myself.
Was that Zapier, Zapier?
Yeah. .com. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? So I'm not sure if I bored you to death or it was mind-blowing.
So there was actually a question about the Kanban maturity model and questioning all maturity models because it looks like a stiff framework. And I think Daniel and I already replied that it's a bit different. I think that the word is maybe a bit misguiding, but it's not about Kanban maturity, it's about the organizational maturity. And I'm not sure if we want to discuss this here, but maybe Dimitar.
Yeah, I actually want to because
okay.
I see the question. Is it Martin's question?
Yeah.
He says,
yeah,
where
it's
do
me
pillars
again.
of scale come from? Yeah. So this pillars of scale thing, it's completely my own interpretation of the world. That's based on my experience and the practice of speaking to thousands of people like in this 10-year period. So it's completely my own work. So it's not associated with Kanban University in any way. I didn't mean to say that. Maybe I did, I'm not sure. So it's not associated with the KMM. Regarding the maturity model, I had my reservations initially too. I need to be very open with that. I thought, how could you put something like this in a model that's two-dimensional and describe it well enough. Actually, our company was one of the first companies to volunteer an assessment, and there was a challenge because some portions of the company will be very good with this, others will be very good with that, and it wasn't really clear to me how you can put a mark on the whole organization versus separate value streams maybe in the organization. So it's not ideal to me. But does it have value? Well, certainly yes. I have found the KMM to be the best tool out there that helps me to explain to people that Kanban is not just a few sticky notes on the wall. It's a big body of knowledge. And as long as you are aware that these things exist and you can do them, I'm happy with that. Whether you do it from 0 to 6 or from 0 to 5 to 2 to 7 to whatever, I don't necessarily care about that myself. I'm not an expert on the KMM, to be honest. But as long as you're aware that these things exist and you can do them, and there's documented proof of these practices and how they can be used, I think that's a huge step forward. So that's my take on the KMM.
Just a question about where to read more. Do you have any recommended blog articles from the Kanbanize site that are your intro to Kanban? Where would you go for that?
Regarding literature in the Kanban space, I can certainly recommend all the Kanban University books. I think it's a must read for every Kanban person. I also read Daniel Vacanti, highly recommend it, about metrics. And I also read Klaus Leopold. His last book was really phenomenal. And outside the Kanban space, but pretty much connected to it, Donald Reinertsen. He's probably the most influential person that has influenced so many of the thought leaders today. So Don Reinertsen is definitely something I definitely recommend. And I see a comment about upstream Kanban. This is Patrick Sayart in the Kanban community. His articles are also quite good. So
he's also in our meetup soon.
Yeah, another great segue, Dimi. We got Patrick coming to talk thanks to Silka's amazing A-lister researching.
Great. There's a question by Alexander Mitev. My question has to do with innovation, exploration, ideas type of work. From your experience, how are these managed? Oh yeah, so that was the answer. The upstream Kanban is the answer. The general idea is that you consider them as options. So an option like in an option that you can materialize, or an option that you can completely discard. You put this on an upstream flow somewhere to the left of your delivery workflow. You develop those options by running small experiments, by doing some interviews, research, and all that stuff. It's still work, so it has to be tracked. It has to be in a deliverable, in a predictable workflow. Because if you're not disciplined with this, then your delivery workflows will starve for work. So the same principles apply, basically. But yeah, Patrick will blow your mind on this.
There was also a question from Helen. I've been wondering how to show enterprise level timelines versus true world state at a team level. Did you say 2-tiered boards in 6 months?
The 2-tiered boards are actually something that we have today, and you can connect the boards as well. Everything that I showed you is there. The only thing that is work in progress is this forecasting engine that will be telling you whether your enterprise timelines are actually going to work or not. But everything else is in there already. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Welcome.
I was figuring out how I could do this manually or in some form, and you've got it obviously in the software. So it's great.
Thank you. Yeah, as I said many times, what's important are the ideas. If you find other ways to do this, great for you. But the ideas are what I value the most. Okay, I think we're out of time. If you guys want to ask me something, please find me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to engage in any Kanban conversations. Thank you so much for having me. The organizers, thank you so much. And the participant, thank you for bearing with us. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Thank you very much.
Awesome, Dimitar, I think, and it was really well perceived because I received some emails around this. I'm not sure if people are keen. Maybe you want to go for this fourth, and if you have time, of course, for your last section, because I think people were actually really keen, and those who want to drop out.
Okay.
So feel free to stay on board if it's okay with you, Dimitar.
Sure. Let me just figure out how to share my screen again, because
Silke, did you want to stop the recording at this point?
Might be interesting for people as well to see afterwards, eh?
Yeah. Okay.
I found it really interesting, that section.
It's not going to take a lot of time. I hope I'll be done in 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, cool.
So what I'm going to show you is an implementation of a Hoshin Kanri idea. What's Hoshin Kanri? I hope you guys are familiar with it, but if you're not, very quickly, that's a Hoshin Kanri matrix. That's what the guys at Toyota came up with in order to deploy strategy. So it starts at the bottom with long-term objectives, like 3 to 4 years in the future, what we want to do. Then you go to the left, you break down these things into what are we going to achieve this year. And then you go here and it's what tangible, lower level, but still high level initiatives are we going to deliver. And then you go to the actual metrics that you're going to be improving and who's responsible to improve them. And then through these dots, you mark which metric has effect on which initiative, and which initiative has effect on which annual goal, and which annual goal has effect on which long-term goal. And this is an amazing tool if you do it on paper. But when it's digital, you have to twirl your head like this, and it just doesn't work well. I've tried that. It doesn't sit well with people. So we've taken these ideas and we've built them into how we scale Kanban across the organization. So I'm going to show you a very quick example of that. So let me go to my Kanbanize board, and I will be showing you this. So I have a strategic board, which corresponds to this and this area of the Hoshin Kanri matrix. And then I have an OKR board. OKRs are big today. I'm sure a lot of you have been exposed to these ideas. They sit around here. The high level, but still short-term initiatives connected to some key results, like critical metrics to improve. And then we have the teams right here. The blue ones are the team boards, and the green ones are the management board, where the key results are broken down into actual tasks that people can work on. So let me open the long-term strategy board. So when you open the board, you see a very long-term plan. This is long-term objectives, 3 to 5 years. You see that we have some initiatives that span multiple years. This one touched the lives of 10% of the Australians. I took this actually from a company called Red Balloon. I'm not sure if it's famous, but I Googled BHAG, which is Big Hairy Audacious Goal, because I wanted to get some example for it. And I found this company from Australia, so it was really interesting. So we have these big audacious goals for the long term. Then we have another timeline, which is for this year's objectives. And these initiatives on this timeline are actually children cards of those on the long-term objective, which is this intersection here. So on the Hoshin Kanri matrix, you say which one depends on which one, and here we implement it with children cards. So if I if I go ahead and I actually click on this child card, it shows me that this initiative is a child of this initiative. So our bigger goal is to get to 10%. This year, we want to get to 4%, and then next year to 8%, and then the next year to whatever. So then we have the so-called related boards. The related board is the OKR board. So let me open the OKR board to show you the OKR board. Well, the OKR board has objectives and key results, right? That's the OKR framework implemented here. Kanban is so flexible. It can implement OKRs even. So I have connected this OKR board to my strategy board, and I see the objectives workflow, this workflow, the objectives workflow here on my management board for the long-term strategy. This is the same, absolutely the same as this. So I've taken those annual goals and I've broken them down into smaller objectives. And I think that getting to a 4% market share will require that we launch a new product line, okay? So I have linked this launch a new product line to this annual goal. And then now I'm moving to the OKR board. These are different people now doing this stuff. So far we were relatively high level management. Now we're middle management, okay? We change roles. So the middle managers see those objectives and say, hey, what can we do to get there? And then we break them down into some actual key results. And we say, yeah, in order to launch a new product line, we need a bunch of stuff, but maybe we need to have an interview with 50 potential customers. And the key results are broken down into different lanes. So I think that's important. We have the different departments here. So we have a key result for engineering, we have a key result for marketing, but we sometimes have key results that are cross-department. And this one, for example, is here because every department, and if you're thinking silos, I'm sorry, but it's what happens in the real world. People work in departments. Every department needed to have a take on the new product, marketing, product management. So sometimes these key results will be cross-team. And I would recommend having a lane for cross-department key results. So you take those objectives and you break them down into OKRs, into key results, sorry. And then from then on, you go to the team level, again, related boards. And this time we attach the team boards and we break down the key results to actual work that the teams can start doing. So let me take the marketing team. I will open their board. It's a very simple board, just having an initiative and a few tasks. So as I showed you already, if I move this first task here, this guy will go to in progress, then its key result will go to in progress, its objective will go to in progress, and then on the strategy, we will see that this has started, and then any of the big parents that have been started. So let's see what happens. I move this here, then the customer interviews initiative will go to in progress. We see it happening automatically here. Now, if I'm a middle manager, I see that there's a cross-department key result that has been started. If I'm curious, I can click on this and I see which one it is. I can click on this and see which exactly the task is. And vice versa, if I'm in the task, see what happens here. I'm now working on a task as an engineer or as a marketer, as anything. And I can see the whole chain up to the touch of lives of 10% of the Australians. This organizational transparency that I talked about. It's not just from the top to the bottom, but it's also from the bottom to the top. And that's how you allow empowerment in the people. That's how you allow them to complete the work, having the right thinking. Why am I doing this? So I think that's pretty important too. And this all goes all the way up to the strategy. So if I'm now here, and if I'm touching 10% of the lives of the Australians, I can take a look at the hierarchy and I see, okay, this one is in progress. By the way, the colors, the orange means in progress and blue means not started. So I can instantly see what has been started, and I can see all the levels of the work down my hierarchy up to level 5, you can see. So I can see that people in the marketing team are actually scheduling interviews right now. And that's, to me, it's unprecedented transparency that anybody can have in the organization. And when you have a strategy defined over here, you deploy it the Hoshin Kanri way across your organization, and then you can see if it's actually working or not. And these percentages here will tell you how much of the work has been finished. And one last thing from my side, and I will go, I will leave you to your dinner, is I've made a lot of research on why CEOs fail, because I'm a CEO of a company. I don't want to fail. And it turns out that 70% of the CEOs fail, not because they're lacking their strategy, but because they cannot execute on it. And I think execution is, well, it's not that I think it's the fact that execution is the single most important thing for a company to survive in the long run. And what I'm showing you here is a relatively convenient way that you can use to ensure that your strategy has been deployed and that it's been executed. And more of that is that it's being executed the Kanban way, which guarantees predictable delivery. So my professional life is fulfilled with that. I hope this hits home with you guys. That it does hit home with me, and I would like to now maybe close, because we're almost 15 minutes over. I just don't want to keep you longer than that. Again, find me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to engage in any discussions, especially if you find something that you don't like in what I just said. I'd love to know. Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Good feedback. Thank you so much, Dimitar. It was awesome. And really, from what I've seen and what I've read and what people just came towards me while you were talking, they really liked it, and they liked that different angle on things. Thanks a lot. And I hate to say goodbye. I always feel really rude to end the meetup. But
thank you very much.
Guys, if there are any questions, hit up Dimitar or Daniel or Ben or myself. We are there to answer the questions. And yes, see you all to our next meetup.
Bye,
Thanks
guys.
a lot. Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Did you get my private message?
Do you mean me?
Daniel.
Oh, did I? Maybe I did. I didn't see it. Oh, yeah.
Yep, which one? Would love to try it.
Yep. No worries. Are you in New Zealand there, Greg? You're in New Zealand. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So Silka will pass on your pass something on to you. I've put them onto the Melbourne and Sydney Kanban meetups. So maybe just post a link, Silka, onto the meetup.
Okay, thanks, guys. Awesome, Dimitar and everybody that was there. Really loved it. Thank you very much, guys.
Cheers, Greg.
Thank you.
So Silka, I might sign off now.
Right. Thanks for that, Daniel. And yeah, Ben and Dimitar have left as well. Yep. Well, we'll catch up anyway.
Yep. All right. I'll see you.
See ya. Bye.